The Tennessee Titans, under no circumstance, should bench Will Levis this season. I'll explain why on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, I'm going to tell you why the Tennessee Titans should absolutely not bench Will Levis at any point in time during this season, no matter the circumstances. Also, we'll talk about the other areas of the Tennessee Titans that have not been doing their job. This offensive line is the worst in the NFL in pass protection through 2 weeks, and the defense has been good, but it hasn't been great. And Brian Callahan shares his own blame as well. We're going to discuss all of that. Before we do, want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. And speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. If you aren't an everydayer, well, you need to be one. Tomorrow, I'm going to look at how fortunate the Tennessee Titans are considering their schedule and what lies ahead and how quickly they can turn this thing around. So can't wait to discuss that. Make sure that you're here with me. And if you check out the Tic Tac Titans film channel, I'm going to have the Tic Tac 4-pack breaking down the Titans' best 4 plays of the week on Monday night. And then on Tuesday morning, I'm going to dive into J.C. Latham's performance in this game because he's one offensive lineman that was doing his job. But we got to talk about Will Levis. And look, I see you guys in the comments, and I'm going to admit this is not the majority of Titans fans, but there's a big chunk of Titans fans who are in my comments on social media or in my comments here on the Locked On Titans podcast saying that the Titans need to bench Will Levis. And it would be one thing for me to get up here and say, no, the Titans don't need to bench Will Levis. I don't think that I'm making any kind of groundbreaking statement when I say that, but I will take that a step further. Considering the news that we saw from the Carolina Panthers on Monday that they are going to be benching Bryce Young, it feels important for me to say this. No matter what, the Tennessee Titans should not bench Will Levis this year, period. Doesn't matter what the circumstance. You play Will Levis the entire season if he's healthy. Look, if he's hurt, obviously, you got to put in a backup. But if Will Levis is healthy enough to play, you need to play Will Levis all year long, no matter what. Let's just think about the pros and cons here. Just think about the pros and cons of this situation. Let's say you play Mason Rudolph. You put in Mason Rudolph, you bench Will Levis, you play Mason Rudolph. Okay. So the only reason that you would do that logically is because you think you're going to win more games, right? That's what it's all about. It's about winning. You want to win more games. How many more games are you winning with Mason Rudolph? Look, Mason Rudolph is a good backup quarterback. He is a good backup. If you need him to come in for a couple of quarters because of an injury, if you need him to play for 2 to 3 weeks because of an injury, sure, he can probably hold it down. He'll probably get 1, maybe 2 if you're lucky, wins in those situations. He'll hold it down, and if you're winning the game, lead you to victory and make sure you don't make any stupid mistakes, which right now I get sounds really good to Titans fans. No stupid mistakes, sign me up. But the reality here is that he is simply a backup. So how many more games are you actually going to win? It's not like the Titans are a 4-13 team and then Mason Rudolph will make them a 9-win team. And let's say Mason Rudolph does take the Titans to the playoffs. They go 9-8, 10-7 after starting 0-2, and they make the playoffs. Who are you beating in the playoffs with Mason Rudolph? Are you beating Pat Mahomes? Are you beating Lamar Jackson? Who are you beating? You know, like to me, the high-end upside To me, it's more about short-term satisfaction. Titans fans want short-term satisfaction. They just want to be able to win a game. They just want to feel that happy feeling. They just want to go on Twitter and talk crap to other fans and say that their team won. It's all short-term. So winning more games, maybe Mason Rudolph wins 1 or 2 more games than you would with Will Levis. But is it really going to make a difference? Also, look, you could say you're not going to lose the locker room, right? Because the players could get sick of Will Levis's mistakes and then turn on the coaching staff. And you got to put the team in the best position. So you could say playing Mason Rudolph doesn't lose the locker room because they're like, all right, the coach is willing to make the move. Also, just from a football standpoint, Mason Rudolph may get rid of the ball quicker. He may be a touch more accurate on the short, easy passes. That's all fair. But look at the list of cons. Consider the list of cons. The ceiling of the team exponentially goes down. Great Will Levis makes this team way better than good Mason Rudolph can. Also, you want to talk about on the field, the explosive passing game is going to go way down. Mason Rudolph does not have a strong enough arm to throw the ball down the field the way that Will Levis can, or to hammer it in a tight windows the way that Will Levis can, which is important when the pressure is bad. Speaking of that, how much better is Mason Rudolph going to be behind this offensive line in the way that they're performing right now, especially on the right-hand side? Mason Rudolph doesn't have more athleticism than Will Levis. He's going to be a sitting duck out there. Also, from a big picture standpoint, you just give up the quarterback dream. You give up the franchise quarterback dream. You admit not only to your team, but to your fan base that you don't have the quarterback of the future on the team. And that's going to have to wait until next year. And then you look at the QB crop next year. Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers as I like to call him, Carson Beck, Cam Ward. Are we certain about any of those? I don't know. So is that any better? Like, what are you giving up there? And at the end of the day, you spent all of training camp hyping this team up around Will Levis and him being the leader and taking the guys to Cabo and doing all that. Like, you say that, you'll lose the locker room if you don't bench Levis, but you might lose some of the locker room too by benching Levis, because they're not going to look at Mason Rudolph and think hope and think the playoffs and think a Super Bowl. Mason Rudolph doesn't inspire that sort of confidence. This isn't, you got the young pup like what happened with Will Levis last year to give the team a bump emotionally like that. That's not coming either. So at the end of the day, you may win 1 or 2 more games with Mason Rudolph. He may be a little quicker to get rid of the ball, a little more accurate on short passes. But the high-end ceiling on the field and as a franchise, you lose it completely. And I'll say this. If you keep playing Will Levis and you don't bench him, either he works through it and he gets better and becomes the player that we hoped and that the team hoped, or he continues to be awful and he gives you a better draft pick in the next season, and then you can live with no regrets saying that you literally gave Will Levis the best chance he possibly could have, but you also set yourself up to make your team better next year. That's why I think what the Panthers are doing is such a stupid thing, because either Bryce Young gets better throughout the season, or you give yourself a good opportunity to take the next guy. Or at least make your team better with a high pick. Think about the wide receivers and the offensive line and the cornerbacks and the edge rushers that are coming in this draft. I'm just saying, the Titans cannot bench Will Levis. And I don't really care what happens. They got to let him do it. They got to let him go through it. So that's how I feel about that. But people around him got to get better too, because this offensive line, the numbers are bad. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality candidates that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses find a qualified candidate within 24 hours. That's why you need to hire professionals like a professional with LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, and now it's even better. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff and shows you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I'm going to the Tennessee Titans Green Bay Packers game this weekend, and I'm going because I found great tickets on Game Time. So make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Yeah, it's game time. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about why the Titans should absolutely not bench Will Levis under any circumstance, went through the pros and cons. Now I want to talk about some other aspects of this team that aren't performing to where they need to. And we all have spent a lot of time talking about Will Levis. And understandably so, the main conversation point with this team right now is Will Levis and the mistakes that he's made. But the reality is that is kind of covering up for some other aspects of the team that I don't think are holding up their end of the bargain. Number one, the offensive line, but also the defense. Now, I'll explain. It's a little bit different of a conversation with the defense. But along with that, Brian Callahan and his play calling on the offensive side of the ball. Now, are these things as culpable as Will Levis in the Titans 0-2 start? That's a conversation worth having. And I will tell you that I believe, yes, the offensive line is as culpable as Will Levis in this 0-2 start. Now, before I tell you why, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. I also have year-round free film content over on the Tic Tac Titans YouTube channel. Make sure that you go over there on Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Tic Tac 4-pack, breaking down the top 4 plays of the game. And also on Tuesday morning, I'm going to have a J.C. Latham film breakdown for you guys as well. More film content, more Locked On Titans content coming for free. Best Titans content out there, in my own opinion. So make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. But let's go into some of these numbers because they're damning. And we talked throughout the offseason that this Tennessee Titans offensive line just needs to be average. If they're just not one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL, then the Titans should be able to be better on offense. And don't take this as excuse making for Will Levis. I'm not making excuses for Will Levis. I have crushed Will Levis for these performances. He played a little bit better in week 2, of course, but it's still not good enough when you make those mind-numbing mistakes. So I'm not making excuses for Will Levis's play when I say this. The offensive line has been one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Now, there are signs of life and there are silver linings in there, but look at the raw totals overall, the raw numbers here. Will Levis was pressured on 48.6% of his dropbacks against the New York Jets. Literally, half the time that he dropped back, he's under pressure. Hard to operate in those circumstances. Not only that, but you want to expand it forward to the full season. According to Next Gen Stats, Will Levis has been pressured 53.4% of the time. Think about that. More than half of his dropbacks, Will Levis has been under pressure. Where does that rank within the NFL, folks? Raise a hands. Anybody? Last, worst, whatever you want to call it. The Tennessee Titans have had Will Levis under pressure more than any other team in the NFL. After the draft pick of J.C. Latham, after the signing of Lloyd Cushenberry, after all of that, the Tennessee Titans still last in the NFL in pressure allowed on their quarterback. The worst team in the NFL in allowing pressure. It's just demoralizing, quite honestly. And look, Peter Skoronski really struggled in that first game. J.C. Latham really struggled in that first game against the Bears. But then they got better. They got a lot better. J.C. Latham, that's why I'm breaking him down tomorrow. J.C. Latham was really good in this game. Led the Titans in run block grade per Pro Football Focus. Gave up 0 pressures or 0 sacks and only 1 pressure in this game. Really good bounce back game from the left tackle. Really good. Peter Skoronski, another really good bounce back game. Second highest run blocking grade on the offensive line per Pro Football Focus behind Latham. Gave up 0 sacks, only 2 pressures. Those two had a pretty good game. Lloyd Cushenberry, 0 pressures or 0 sacks, 1 pressure. Pretty good game from Lloyd Cushenberry. Not as good in the run game as the left side, but pretty good game. And then you look at the right side, which we all worried about all off season long. I talked about it before the season and what could go wrong. I talked about it in the section where I was saying, hey, not only isn't just a go wrong, it's just most likely what's going to happen. And this right side of the offensive line was always a concern. Dylan Radins gave up a sack and 4 pressures after giving up a sack and 2 pressures in week 1. And Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, who I realistically think is the worst starting offensive lineman. I've always thought that Dylan Radins was better than Nicholas Petit-Ferrer. Mike Vrabel didn't think so, but that's okay. I believed in Dylan Radins being better than NPF. NPF gave up 1 sack and 9 pressures. 9 pressures. Now, my guy Easton Freeze from A to Z, he reported 13 pressures. I'm not certain what he used for that, but I got 9 pressures from Pro Football Focus is what NPF allowed, and a sack. 9 pressures. Just to put that in context for you, Andre Dillard's worst game in 2023 was 7 pressures allowed. Dennis Daly in 2022, his worst game was 6 pressures allowed. So as bad as this fan base thinks Dennis Daly and Andre Dillard are, Nicholas Petit-Ferrer was worse than that on Sunday. So we all, man, who could live behind Dillard? Who could live behind Dennis Daly? Well, again, I'm not making excuses for Levis's boneheaded plays, but if you're going to be talking like that, NPF was worse than those guys ever were on Sunday. And if Easton's numbers are what we're going with, 13, that's the worst performance since like 2018. So 29% pass block win rate, last in the NFL according to ESPN's analytics. If you don't want to listen to next gen stats, go with ESPN's analytics. And 26th in pass block rate according to Pro Football Focus. So any of the 3 analytics sites that you want to go with, the Titans are in the bottom, and often last in pass protection. Will Levis doesn't need excuses, but I mean, it's hard to win in those circumstances. And not even that, but you look at the defense and you look at the play calling, those things have been letdowns as well. You don't go to 0-2 with just your quarterback being awful like some people think. No, these other places have let the Titans down too. So we'll look at the defense and the play calling on offense as well. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, you've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel. It is America's #1 sportsbook. But I got something a little bit different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Looking at some of the odds this weekend, the Titans are 1.5-point favorites at home against the Green Bay Packers and Malik Willis. I got to take the Tennessee Titans money line this week. If they lose at home to Malik Willis, someone's got to get fired. There's no way around it. So, if you feel like me, or even if you don't, make sure that you visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We've talked about the pros and cons to benching Will Levis and why I think it should not happen the entire season, no matter what. We talked about just how bad, just how awful, just how the Titans offensive line is the worst pass protection offensive line in the NFL right now. But now we got to talk about the other aspects of this team that are struggling as well. And look, it's easy to pile on Will Levis. I'm not making excuses for Will Levis. He has deserved the criticism that he's got. But I'm just saying that Will Levis's criticism has kind of shadowed the amount of criticism that other aspects of this team should be getting. Talked about the offensive line, but now we got to look at the defense and the play calling on offense. And you may be thinking, Tyler, the defense is first in the NFL in a lot of categories. The defense has been incredible, right? Well, yes, you're right. The defense has, but there's one area where the defense has not been incredible, and it's the one area that we were promised would be better, and it's not. And that's in turnovers. Now, before I deep dive into this, thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, on tomorrow's show, I am going to be breaking down the rest of the Titans schedule before the bye and how they need to capitalize and how lucky they are for how things have broken out with Green Bay and then the Dolphins. But I do want to tell you about Locked On NFL. You get your Titans news here with me, get your NFL news at Locked On NFL. I'm the host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, Monday through Friday. And then there's a second episode with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop, breaking down all the rest of the NFL topics, some of the same NFL topics, just a lot of great NFL discussion. So check out Locked On NFL as your second listen. But this defense has not gotten turnovers. 0 turnovers for the defense. And while the offense has hurt the defense by turning over the ball themselves, well, Titans -5, -4 turnover margin right now. And that doesn't even include blocked punts. So really, the Titans are like -6, -7 in turnover margin right now. But the other side of that is the defense hasn't forced any turnovers either. And this was supposed to be a turnover-heavy defense. That's what they preached all season. And it feels, again, a lot like last year when Mike Vrabel said, hey, we were good on third downs. We were good in the red zone, but we got to get more turnovers. We got to get more turnovers. Blah, blah, blah. Well, we're hearing the same stuff. The only thing is I actually had hope that they would get more turnovers because Denard Wilson's experience and the last 2 defenses that he's been a part of have led the NFL in turnover margin. So you're thinking, okay, there is reason to believe that this defense will get more turnovers, but it hasn't happened. So the defense has been great, but it hasn't been incredible because they haven't made any special plays. Like L'Jarius Sneed hasn't made any special plays, and honestly, he's given up some big catches and big moments. He's played good, but he hasn't been great. Jeffrey Simmons, he's been good, but he hasn't been great. Harold Landry's been really good. No doubt about it. I mean, he deserves his credit. T'Vondre Sweat, really good in week 1. Was not very good in this game. So, I feel weird. I'm not criticizing the defense in the sense of, I think they've done a poor job. The defense has been great, and they've played good enough for the Titans to win both these games. But at the same time, they haven't been extraordinary, and they haven't forced any turnovers, and they haven't done anything out of the ordinary. They've just been really good. They've just been great, okay? Incredible at times. But they just haven't made the huge play, the turnover that we've been waiting for. It's been 2 weeks, not a single turnover. And regardless of what happens with Will Levis or the O-line or anything else, if you would have told Jeffrey Simmons and L'Jarius Sneed and Harold Landry that the defense would not have forced a turnover through the first 2 weeks, they would have been disappointed. So I think it's fair to be disappointed by that, even though the defense has played really well. So tell me if I'm crazy or not, if that's fair or not. I don't know. I do want to also talk about the play calling. I think that Brian Callahan has called plays scared because Will Levis has been so volatile. I think that Brian Callahan would like to call plays differently, but he can't because he's so scared of Will Levis. And you could say, well, then bench Will Levis. But the problem is Mason Rudolph, I think, puts you in some of those same situations. You're calling the game with a backup quarterback. And Brian Callahan has been calling the game like Will Levis is a backup quarterback because he's so scared of him to make more mistakes. And you can really see it in the second half. You can really, really see it in the second half after Levis makes some of these boneheaded errors in the third quarter or earlier in the game in this circumstance. But the Titans are going to have a hard time scoring in the second half if they continue to call plays the way that they've been calling. So let me just throw some numbers out. I posted these stats on my Twitter, on my Instagram, here on the YouTube channel, in the community area as well. But on first downs in the second half, so looking at the second half offense on first downs, the Titans have run the ball 13 out of 20 times. And one first down got called back on a penalty on a holding that was a run play. So really 14 of 21 times, 66.7% of the time on first down in the second half, the Titans run the ball. Now, if I am able to see that, don't you think other coaches in the NFL are able to see that? And if we know that you're going to, on first down in the second half, you're going to run the ball 2 out of 3 times, I'm going to be ready for that. And if I'm ready for that and you're that predictable, then I'm going to be able to stop it. And stop it is exactly what teams have done. On those 13 carries that counted, the Tennessee Titans have got 31 yards. That's 2.3 yards per carry on first down runs in the second half. If you add in the holding penalty and you look at the net yards, just how many yards the Titans have gotten on first down run plays, even the penalty, that drops it to only 21 total yards and a 1.5 net gain on first downs. If you're only gaining 1.5 yards on first down, you're not going to have a very successful offense. So I know that Brian Callahan is probably terrified of Will Levis in the second half of these games. Brian Callahan, you watching his press conference, he literally cannot fathom that Will Levis makes these plays. Like he coached with Peyton Manning and Matthew Stafford and Derek Carr and Joe Burrow. He just cannot fathom that somebody would do these things. You can tell when he talks about it that he is just absolutely perplexed and doesn't even know like how to handle Will Levis making these plays. So I know that he's calling the game scared. You can tell by the play calls. But you can't win playing scared. That's not football. That's life. If you're scared, go to church. You can't win playing scared, calling plays scared of your quarterback. You can't win like that. We saw that with Marcus. They're calling plays to try to hide the quarterback. You can't win like that in the NFL consistently. You might get 1 or 2 games. Look, Green Bay just won a game. But it's not going to do much long term, and you're just going to lose more often than not. So, look, again, the whole plot of the episode today, I'm not making excuses for Will Levis. I've been extra critical of Will Levis. But the Titans absolutely cannot bench him. And they need to get better around him with the worst pass protecting offensive line in the NFL through 2 weeks, a defense that's created no turnovers, and a coach that's calling plays scared. Can't win like that either. So a lot needs to get better. But luckily for the Titans, they got a major break in the schedule, and I'm going to break that down on tomorrow's show. So make sure that you come back here to the Locked On Titans podcast and go over to Tic Tac Titans. Get subscribed there for the Tic Tac 4-pack and the JC Latham breakdown. You want some positivity in your life? Let's talk about JC Latham and how he played in that game against the Jets. And then check out Locked On NFL for all your NFL news as well. That's going to do it for me today, folks. Thumbs up on the video. Tighten up down in the chat. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.